Teacher of Cups, Exploring the Inner Landscape. The best teacher in the emotional realm is your own inner life. External teachers can point the way, but the territory is ours to explore. No one else can shed our cheers or feel our joy.
Hello, welcome everybody. Today in our video of the Tarot of Transformation, we're going to be talking about the Teacher of Cups, and the subtitle is Exploring the Inner Landscape.
So during this time of the year, the sun is pretty low in the sky, so the shadows are long, which makes it a great time to look at our shadow. In this card, the shadow is in the watery depths. So I'm wondering, Willow, can you say more about that?
Yeah, thank you. So the shadow resides in our body, and it refers to our subconscious or semi-conscious material that's kind of dark and kind of murky, and we can't really see it very well, which is why they call it the shadow. And it's usually in the subconscious, which is deep within the body.
Yeah. And on the card, I think there's a mermaid and a volcano and a dragon, and I'm wondering if you can maybe say more about those pieces as well.
Yeah, thank you. So the mermaid represents our sensual or passionate nature, and for many people that is also a part of the shadow. It's been repressed, it's not fully expressed, and so it's lurking there in the depths as well. And then the other major symbol here is the volcano. So deep in the bottom of the ocean it starts, and then it rises up to the surface, and that represents our anger.
And I'm curious, when you say that, what the relationship is between anger and shadow.
Yeah, good question. So a lot of anger just has to do with our boundaries being violated. Like someone comes in and yanks your hair, and we get mad and we push them away. Fire arises in our system to push them back. So that's a really healthy use of anger. But there's another kind of anger which has to do with unmet need from our childhood. So that's lurking in the depths, lurking in our subconscious. So let me give you an example. I was hanging out with a person the other day, and they weren't really connecting with me in a way that I felt seen and heard, and it just didn't feel very good. And then I noticed that later in the day I was irritable. So that's an example of my unmet need for authentic contact, which the person I was with didn't meet, but it also triggered my whole childhood wound around that, and it triggered it, and it brought it up out of the depths, and then reached the surface, and then I had this little anger or irritation response to it.
Yeah, thanks for that example. So the second paragraph in the book says, in order to receive the teachings, we have to open deeply and become intimate with our inner experience. This requires not just feeling our emotions, but having the awareness to see what they're about. If we are just enmeshed in emotions, living out our story, we don't learn much. We must bring the inquiring mind with us as we explore the inner depths. An attitude of curiosity, along with some detachment, helps us dive in without getting lost. So there's a lot of great, words and phrases in there, and I'm just wondering if, we can break them down a little bit.
Sure.
And the first one that I was curious about was enmeshment with our emotions.
Yeah. So we all start out being enmeshed with our emotions. Like little children are all emotion. Id, Freud called it, So things move through our system, and we just express it immediately, and we have no observing of it. We're completely identified it. We're basically completely enmeshed with it.
Right. And curious too about right after that, it says living out our story.
Yeah. So emotions always have two components. There's a sensation in the body. There's always a sensation. And then there's a story that goes along with it. So in the example I gave of myself, the story is like, this person doesn't really get me or doesn't really understand me or doesn't really care about me. So that was the piece of story that was related to my experience. So when I was talking to that person, my story got triggered and then the emotion got activated.
Right. Okay. And also, curiosity around the word inquiring mind.
Yeah, so that's the next step of trying to work with that enmeshment. So we need to bring in our observing mind, our acquiring mind, and notice the sensations and notice the story and label it and name it. And I talk about all that quite extensively in my book, The Path Through Emotional Pain. I break that process down in great detail.
Great. And then the word detachment had something kind of come up in my system, so I was hoping you could explore that too.
Yeah, detachment's kind of a loaded word because many of us hear that and we think, I will not feel anything, I'm detached from it. And that's not how it works.
Right.
So detachment basically means observing it. So we're still feeling it. You don't want to get so detached that you don't feel it. You actually still want to feel it. But you want to step back a little from it and be observing it.
Right, more of a panoramic perspective
Yeah.
of that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And last, there was sort of the word an attitude of curiosity.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, so most of us have a big aversion to our shadow material, which is why it's in the shadow, because we haven't looked at it and we don't want to look at it.
Right.
So the metaphor is we're walking along this murky pond and we look into it, we see some black shadowy thing and we get out of there as fast as we can. And again, in my book, Path Through Emotional Pain, the first 3 pages talk about all the ways we avoid that yucky-do material. So if we can cultivate an attitude of curiosity, which is a bit like coming up to the edge of the pond and going, there's something in there. How big is it? What shape is it? I wonder what it means. You know, that attitude of curiosity where we kind of lean forward and inquire about that. Not jump right into the pond and drown in it, not run up the mountain, but get that place where we're right next to it so that we can begin exploring it both cognitively, what it means, what the story is, and on a felt sense level in our bodies.
Yeah. What you're saying sort of reminds me of bringing an attitude of curiosity instead of judgment. So this like open hand versus a closed fist allows more possibilities for us to move towards with openness.
Yeah. Beautiful example.
Yeah. So now that we know, how do we do?
Yeah. Well, meditation is the royal road for inquiring into ourselves. But not just any kind of meditation. The kind of meditation where we sense into our body, feel into our body, and observe our mind. So basically, meditations like Vipassana meditation.
Okay. And I'm just looking to what you do say in the book as well is there are many methods that support this inner exploration, including journaling, expressive movement, art processes, and dream work. Activities that include a process of inquiry or self-reflection, as well as working with helping professionals, all illuminate your inner world.
Yeah, so as I said, meditation's the royal road, but there are other roads too. For example, art therapy, self-therapy is a really good one. So we recommend in the book that you actually do a drawing or painting of your inner landscape and put those gnarly, shadowy things in there and your own volcanoes and dragons and mermaids, and then journal about it. But if you're going to do that, it's really important to get your inner critic over there, set them aside and say, don't bug me right now. And don't do this piece of art as if it were something to show, like a professional work. This is a process piece, so doing it quickly helps, and not worrying about technique.
Yeah, such good advice to sort of put our inner critic away. I know mine comes out pretty fast.
I know, it does for so many people when we're doing art.
Yeah.
So anyway, I want to thank you all for listening to this video on the Teacher of Cups from the Tarot of Transformation, exploring the inner landscape.